Hello, everyone. Let us now proceed with the next topic in our syllabus, what is called as strings, which is nothing but a character array. Now, before coming to this particular topic, we have come across and we have understood what is called as arrays. Let me give you a brief introduction about strings. So far, we have learnt how to define arrays of different sizes and dimensions, how to initialize the arrays. We also seen certain applications of arrays in terms of sorting and searching. With this knowledge under your belt, you should be ready to handle strings, which are simply put a special kind of an array. Basically, characters are the fundamental building blocks of source program. This particular topic introduces C standard library functions that facilitate string and character processing. With this brief introduction, let us proceed in trying to understand what is this strings all about and how it plays a major role in this particular programming language, that is C. First, we turn our attention towards understanding what is definition of a string. In simple terms, a string is a sequence of characters that is treated as a single data item. One of the important characteristics or features of this string in C programming language is it is terminated by null character whose ASCII value is 0. Now, this particular situation, you would have not come across arrays where the array elements are not terminated by a null character. So, one of the fundamental difference between a normal array in terms of whether we are talking about integer array or float array and a character array which is called a string, that is, in case of character array, the last element will always be filled with a null character whose ASCII value is 0. Now let us try to understand this, how it works in C. Let us see the declaration part of string. If you try to recollect your declaration part in arrays, it had syntax like this. You had a data type followed by name of an array followed by the size. And we have seen certain data types in arrays. For example, int a of 10, where int was the data type, a was name of an array, and 10 was the dimension of an array. We have also seen the array of real data type, where the data type was called as float. And hence, my declaration statement was looking like float a of 10. Now, instead of this int and float, if I replace the data type by char, without changing the other part of the syntax, that means my syntax is having data type char followed by the name of an array followed by size, that is followed by the dimension. Now, such type of declaration statement is actually called as strings, where the data type is char. So you have char followed by name of an array followed by the size or the dimension. For example, you have in front of your screen char str of 10. Needless to say, char is a data type, str is a name of an array, and 10 is the dimension. Now, str is what is called as string. Now, this particular string is nothing but a character array. Have a look at that declaration statement. You can maximum hold 9 characters. A series of characters that will be stored, we call it as a string. We have also seen in arrays that during the declaration time, as a programmer, you can also initialize the elements of an array. If we can do that for integer and float data type, C allows you to do that even in character data type. Have a look at the example in front of you. I have char str of 10 equal to COVID. The only thing is, when you are trying to initialize the character array, you have to ensure that all the characters are enclosed within a pair of opening and closing double quotes. This one, you have this one here, you have this one here. So the entire set of characters, look at this, the characters are C, O, V, I, D. The entire set of characters are enclosed within a pair of opening and closing double quotes, right? That means COVID is a string which I am initializing to a character array called as str, right? And we have also seen in the previous topic that when you are trying to initialize the elements of an array, you can always skip the dimension. And the same thing holds good here. You can also skip the dimension of an array, right? So you can remove this 10 and just have a pair of opening and closing square bracket and followed by equal to symbol and other stuffs. Now let us look at the memory map of string. We have seen how memory map looks in case of arrays. Let us see how the memory map looks in case of string. Now I have this declaration statement which was also initialized. I have char str of 10 equal to COVID, right? Now the dimension is 10, right? So I will have 10 addresses. The memory map looks like this, right? So I have the address starting from 101 to 110, right? Since character data type occupies 1 byte, the dimension is 10. So I will have totally 10 bytes reserved for this array called as string, right? Now, as usual, your array elements starts from 0, right? That means the numbering of array, the index or the subscript starts from 0, and hence it is str of 0 all the way till str of 9. So 0 to 9 is totally 10. Now let us see how this string COVID is stored in this memory map. The first character is C, so that will be stored in the first address. Second character is O, that will be stored in the second address. Third character is V, that will be stored in the third address, that is 103, followed by I in 104, D in 105. If you try to recollect, couple of minute back, I have said that every string in C will be terminated by a null character whose ASCII value is 0. So the null character is represented by /0. Since D is the last character of the string, your C compiler will automatically insert null character after the last character D, which is denoted as /0. Please remember, this /0 is null character. It is represented as one character. Do not mistake it as two characters. One is slash and another one is 0. No, it is only one character called as /0, that is null character. And this null character, its ASCII value is 0. Now, because the total length of this string COVID is only 5, followed by one null character, which is 6, the remaining 4 bytes of this declaration statement, or the remaining 4 bytes of this particular array str, will be a wastage, right? So it's a wastage. We just can't do anything because that is what is called as static memory allocation. Now I can also have the same memory map working for this particular declaration statement whose dimension is 6 instead of 10. That means I can get rid of these 4 bytes. It's as simple as I can get rid of these 4 bytes, right? Now, see here, I have 6 as a dimension and I have 101 to 106. So it makes some sense. We also have to ensure that the dimension which you give inside the pair of opening and closing square bracket of a character array should be one more than the total length of the string, right? Now watch out here. The length of the string is 5, the dimension is 6, right? So 5 plus 1 is 6. So I've given the dimension as 6. Why this is extra required? In order to hold this particular null character, right? So this is how basically your memory map in string looks like. Let us get back to the PowerPoint slide, and then this is what we have seen so far. We can also initialize the string character wise, right? Now if you look at the previous slide, we had the entire word COVID enclosed in the pair of opening and closing double quotes. But here, if you look at it, I have enclosed that in a pair of single quote, but in single quote, I have each characters. So I have char str of 10 is equal to open the curly brace. And if you look at the first character C, that is enclosed in the pair of opening and closing single quote, followed by comma, followed by another pair of opening and closing single quote where I have the second character called as O. So like this, all my five characters C, O, V, I, D are enclosed in a pair of opening and closing single quote. Again, since the null character is also a character, I have the null character enclosed in a pair of opening and closing single quote. So either you can go like this or you can go like this, enclosing in a pair of opening and closing double quotes. I personally feel enclosing the entire set of characters in a pair of opening and closing double quotes is good, not only from the readability point of view, but also from the editing point of view. Now, having known how the strings are declared and initialized, let us proceed further and understand how input and output operations on strings takes place. We have already seen long back that the input and output operation in C programming language takes place with the help of two library functions called as scanf and printf. And we also know we are familiar with the syntax of both. The same scanf and printf is used to perform IO operations on strings as well. But at the same time, apart from this scanf and printf, C supports a couple of other library functions which will allow the programmer to perform the IO operations. At this point of time, let us focus on such type of functions which are called as formatted and unformatted. In front of your screen, you have two input functions and two output functions. The input functions are scanf, which is called as formatted input, and getS, which is unformatted input. And the two output functions, one is called as printf, which is formatted output, and the other one is called as putS, which is called as unformatted output. Sorry for that word. It is called as unformatted output. It is not unformatted input. Now let us see how this IO operations takes place in strings. We know that the format specification is one of the syntax of the format IO operations called as scanf and printf. If you try to recollect, we have used percentage %d for integer, percentage %f for float, percentage %c for character. Similarly, when we are trying to use the IO operations on strings, we make use of format specification called as percentage %s, right? Nothing great about this. You just need to replace percentage %d or percentage %f, what you have studied so far, with the help of percentage %s. And the only difference is whenever you used such type of format specifications, you did not use the you used the ampersand symbol. But in case of percentage %s, you are not going to use the ampersand symbol. Let us have a look at simple example which uses format specification. I have a character array called as city whose dimension is 15, and then I have a printf which will say enter name of the city, and scanf percentage %s. Now percentage %s is the format specification that I am using for this character array called as city. So whatever I enter, that will be stored in a character array called as city whose dimension is 15, and then my printf will enter whatever you have entered as city, right? Now since you know how the memory map of character array looks like, right? So since the dimension is 15, you have to ensure that whatever the name of the city you give, the maximum length is 14, because you know that the last character will always be reserved for the null character. Now, having known this, let us try to understand what is the disadvantage of percentage %s. When you have this char name of 10, where name is an array and 10 is the maximum dimension, and then you perform the input operation with the help of scanf percentage %s. Now, when you have this, the input should be given without a blank space. Now, that is the thing that you have to remember as a programmer, right? That means it is not possible to store a string having spaces. Now this you have to be a little bit careful. And the only way to overcome this is with the help of unformatted functions. Now let us see how unformatted IO operations takes place in C. Now we have these two IO operations which are called as unformatted IO operations. The first one is called as getS, which is nothing but the simplest and convenient method of reading a string. A simple syntax is getS followed by a character array. And apart from this, you have unformatted output function in string, which is carried out with the help of a library function called as puts, which is nothing but the simplest and convenient method of printing array of characters. Syntax resembles same as that of getS. You have puts followed by character array. Let us try to understand both these unformatted operations with the help of an example. Now you have a small script in front of you. I have character name of 30, printf name, enter the name, getS name, and printf you entered puts name. So if you look at the third line, you have getS name where I'm not using any format specification. So getS is a library function in the character array. Similarly, in the fifth line, I am using puts, which is nothing but a library function, and name is a character array, which will resemble your syntax. A sample output of this code, assuming that you have written your main and all other stuffs, assuming this particular program does not give any syntax error, if I make an attempt to run this program and I give the output like this, enter name, just COVID-19 space epidemic, right? Now this space which is there after 9 and before E, that is also taken care because we are using a library function called as getS. If instead of getS, if you are using scanf %s, then this would not have been the situation, right? So because I am using unformatted input function called as getS, I am able to make use of blank space as a part of my input. So if I enter COVID-19 epidemic, I'll get the output like this. Okay. Now, when you look at this, right, both the IO operations which are unformatted, that is getS and puts, these are the library functions which are a part of your string handling functions. And hence, it becomes extremely important for you as a programmer to ensure that the appropriate header file is included just before the program. The way how scanf and printf are prototype in stdio.h. Similarly, any library function which you are making use for strings, those type of library functions are prototype in strings.h. And hence, it becomes important and mandatory for you to include a header file called as #include strings.h before the start of your main program. Now let us proceed further and have a look at another type of input, what we call it as reading a line of text. Now so far I was just reading one string, or probably I was reading two strings with a space. Now sometimes there's a need for me to have a series of characters or probably a line of text, right? So the syntax for that is you have scanf followed by the format specification called as percentage, but then you have something called as caret/n, which is enclosed in the pair of opening and closing square bracket, right? This one, caret followed square bracket followed by caret/n square bracket close. Now, what is the significance of this scanf is it will read all the characters except the new line character. So it allows the programmer to keep on entering the characters till you press enter key. The moment you press enter key, all the characters that you have read before pressing enter key will be stored in a character array called as str. Now, if you enter the input as Amar Akbar Anthony, right? I do not know how many of you know this. Amar Akbar Anthony is one of the most famous and very good Hindi movie of Amitabh Bachchan, right? It was also duplicated in other South Indian languages, right? This was also one of the movie where Amitabh Bachchan got the award for the best actor. Of course, in this, Amitabh played a role of Anthony. Amar was played by Vinod Khanna, and Akbar was played by Rishi Kapoor. Okay, and the same was also duplicated in, dubbed in Telugu, which was called as Ram Robert Rahim, where if I try to recollect, it was played by Krishna and Rajnikant. I do not know who played the role of Rahim actually, right? So anyway, come back to the programming language. Now for this particular line of text, if I enter the input as Amar Akbar Anthony and press enter key, right, that enter key will not be stored in the variable str. Apart from that, rest everything will be stored in the character array called as str, and hence my output will be Amar Akbar Anthony.